Hi everybody. In this one we're going to be working towards adding menus to the game. I don't think we're actually going to make it as far as implementing the whole menu system. We're just going to do a little bit more organization. We're also going to make the game a little bit better to look at, which is what we're going to start with, and then we'll implement the basics of the menu. But we're not going to make it as far as I would have liked. But let's just see what we can do. So to start, I'm gonna go to the render file for rendering in ncurses, right? And the first thing that I want to do is I want to start adding colors to the game because when I do it, this is kind of bland to look at, and I just want to make it a little bit prettier. So that's what we're going to start with. Let me close that. And to do that, we're going to update our init function. And we're going to basically tell ncurses first that we want to start using colors. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this function called init pair. And what I'm going to do, I've seen the tutorial kind of be very specific about like do this. And then let me come back to that in a second. Color. So this is the color of the player. That's the foreground. So that's the actual color of the text. And the next one is going to be the color of the background. So in this case, color white, color black. So that's exactly what we have right here. But to go back to this for a second, I've seen in the tutorial, they do it like this. And then a tutorial I read. And then what they do is when they're actually doing it, they'll do like hashtag define color, let's just say player 1. And then they'll put this in here. So they'll do it like this, and then when they get to rendering for the player, they'll use this macro. Personally, I just like this. I don't know if there's anything wrong with doing it this way. So I'm just going to keep it like this. And if anybody eventually comes across this and says, Colin, this is a stupid way to do it because of XYZ, I'll definitely look at that. And then I'll probably make another video of me changing it and talking about why I was wrong to do it. But in the meantime, until I don't know better, I'm just going to keep this. And the next thing to do is basically just change all of our block colors to different kinds. Those are all of our blocks for right now. Maybe we'll have more in the future. And anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say is if it's a block that's not under a switch, it's going to be a red color. If it's a block that's over a switch, we're going to make it green. If it's a switch and there's no block over, we're going to make it red. So this kind of hopefully kind of tacitly tells the user to connect the two reds. Maybe because they're reds, it's not the best idea because they'll kind of assume red is bad. So we could play around with like a color yellow, for example. But I don't know if I love that or not. But we'll just play around with it and we'll come back to it at another date. Okay, so we have that working in the sense that we've created a bunch of pairs, but we're not actually using those pairs. So the next thing basically that we have to do is if we want to do, for example, do this, we would do attribute on, yeah, and then we get the color pair, which is this, and then we would pass it this, that, and then we can do attribute off. And I think that's not a color pairs. Oops. Okay, so if we do this, this should be fine. But it's not working, of course. Oh, it's because I did the one that makes no difference. So let me do it like with this one real quick. So there, rx make. And now you can see we have something working. Of course, we didn't actually change the colors, and it's kind of gross to look at. But basically what I hope you can kind of see now is if we do it this way, we basically have to have this for every single one. And since we're doing it a bunch of times, that to me feels like a pretty good use case for just creating a little helper function to simplify our code. So we're just going to make this, and we'll make it like this UI draw character. So kind of private. So now we'll basically that's what this underscore is basically telling me. It's basically not expected to be called outside of this little area. So we'll do const char, and this is the character that we're going to be drawing. And then what we can do is we can just take that, and since we use this color pair function twice, and we can just do this, we can also see what this actually returns. And so it returns n curses bits, which returns something else. So I'm just going to keep it as auto just for simplicity. And that's just kind of easier. Color pair C. And then what we can do is we can kind of do this, CP, CP. And now we just need to change what is being drawn. So I'm just gonna take this, so I yanked that, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, well, actually, all right, whatever. So I'm gonna just basically change all these UI draw char, and we simplify this a little bit. So that's a little bit better. UI draw char. So now if we make it, let's see how it works, or if it doesn't work. Okay, so what we see here first is we have this white background. You can see that my mouse doesn't seem to really like being over an end cursor screen, which is kind of interesting. Maybe it's because I set like the cursor to invisible or something. I don't know why the cursor would affect it, but it doesn't matter because overall we don't really want the user using their mouse anyways. But you can see this @ symbol is white. You can see these symbols are red, and this block, which is over a switch, is green. So everything is working as intended. Let's do this, and let's beat the game or that level. And everything seems to be working pretty well so far. Right, so that is the first part. The next part I want to do is I actually want to go back to doing some code organization real quick, where basically I made all these functions, but I actually didn't change any of these, unfortunately. So basically I have all these states, right? And I'm never really sure, I'm still familiarizing myself with Z, but it's like that. And then we can do like Sokoban. And I guess I have to do it a bunch. And one thing that's unideal about this, right, is I did it for this. If I did a make right now, there'd be a ton of errors, as you can tell. And that's because I also have to do it over here. I think I can just do, okay, so Command Enter. So that worked. And now I need to go into main. And if I do state here, so this is going to be Sokoban. And now is everything good? No, everything is not good. It's going to be over here. Oh, so let's just keep the, I'll just type it, it's fine. So Sokoban, okay, cool. So the last thing to do is go into UI and change these. Not super bad. Good movie. Whew, okay. I shouldn't yawn. All right, so now we've kind of just like made our naming a little bit better. Just for fun, let's check out level 0 again, just to make sure everything is still fine. I don't see anything that makes me go, something's a problem here. Right, so there is the basics of just finishing up the organization in terms of the naming, so everything's just a little bit clearer to read. We still got to change this at some point, but we'll come back to that at a later time. And the last thing I want to do is I want to do basically get to the start of the menu. We're not actually going to implement like the UI of the menu or anything that special. We're just going to implement the beginnings of the functionality, and we'll come back in the next video and we'll actually start implementing a level select screen. And when we get to the level select screen, right, we're actually going to get rid of init from level. Right, so we have all this right here still in our main file where we're reading from the command line. In the next video, we're going to be getting rid of this, and it should just be a lot cleaner of an experience for the user. And then we'll also get to like save files and whatnot, but that's for a little bit down the line. For right now, what we need to do is we need to just create the very basics. So I'm going to just do a basic state kind of approach where we're going to have two states. We're going to have our menu state and we're going to have our game state. So I'm going to do a num class state. I need a semicolon, of course. Let me also put a guard here because I always forget that these days. Okay, so num class state, and there's going to be two states and game. So those are our two states. Sick. Now I'm going to rename this because Sokoban as state doesn't really make a lot of sense when we have states in terms of like the actual experience that the user is in, the state of the user as opposed to the state of the game. So I'm just going to name it Sokoban, and that's fine. Now I'm going to get the actual state we're in, and that is going to be, in this case, state equals state menu. Cool. Oh, that's it. Okay, cool. And then I think that was a colon, not a semicolon. So the next thing is, now that we're in the menu state, we need to have like basically a way to handle what we're going to do when we're in the menu state versus what we're going to do in the game state. And since we're using enumerations, since we're using enumerations, just using like a switch statement is totally fine here. But there are some little changes I'm going to make before we get there. So now I'm just going to not make it a constant. I'm just going to reset it every loop. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to UI, the header file, and we're also going to have a void UI render menu. And there's nothing to give it right now. We'll come back to that in a little bit. And at a certain point, we're actually just going to separate these two into their own thing. So we'll probably create like a basic like interface for implementing them, like the basic rendering for Sokoban and the basic rendering for the menu. And we may even do some interaction stuff on top of it. So we just separate it more into like their own states. And at a certain point, if we start getting into like classes, we may just make this, we'll change our whole game state and we'll get rid of the enumeration, and we'll just be calling like while game.is running, and then we'll do like state.update, state.render, right? We'll do something like that. But we're not there yet, so we're just gonna keep it super simple while we can, and then if we get to the point where we think we should be using some kind of inheritance, that's when we'll start doing it. Anywho, so UI header file. So I did the render menu, cool. C++, draw char, so it would go right here. And because again, we're not doing any menu in this video, we're just doing the very basics. I'm gonna make it like Sokoban main menu and exclamation mark because we're excited. Always because we're excited. And just for funsies, because we're excited, we're gonna do this, and the color pair we're gonna use is, we'll do, so I didn't need to delete that, we'll do it like, we'll do green text just for fun. And this will be in the middle, and we can even be a little bit nicer, so we can get this like max there. I want this one. Actually, let me get all of these. Cool. And so UI render menu. So you can also see we have some duplicate code here with this 2 lines of clear and clear. 2 lines I really don't care about, to be perfectly honest. So will live. And let's not even bother with this main menu stuff. Let's just put this there, get rid of that, and that will be our main menu. Now, of course, if we do it like this, right, there's going to be no way to get to the game right now. So if I run it, we're just in Sokoban. It's actually, what did I mess up? Oh, we're not actually calling. UI render menu, because no matter what state we're in, right, the first thing we're going to do is we're always going to render the menu. So we can just hard code that. Then when we get here, then we can deal with it. But when we're here, right, we can see we have our menu, which looks pretty cool. But now what we need to do is we need to say, are we in the menu or are we in the game state? So in that case, it's pretty simple, right? We just have our little switch and then we have our state. And then I can just do add missing switch cases. It's always like a little gross to look at this, but that's okay. Here's our code that we're going to be filling in. For the menu, what we're going to do, pretty simple. We're always going to do a, let me actually start with our game state because that's easier. There. That's our game state. But right now we have no way to get into the game state. So that needs to be fixed. So you can see we're calling this. So there's two cases here that we care about. So if the user input is equal to a new line, I'm just going to say that's it's not very user friendly because there's no directions which says you have to press new line to get into the next state. But again, this is a very basic version and we're going to make it better in the next video. So for right now, we're just going to make it like kind of like a secret option. Either you know how to do it or you don't. But if you do know how to do it, what we're going to do is we're going to change the state. Awesome. And then what we're going to do is we have to choose what to render. In this case, we're going to render Sokoban. And we'll pass it Sokoban. And that's it. Else, we're just going to do UI render menu. And I think that's it. We'll see if it works. So I'm in the menu state right now, and I'm about to press enter. We're in the game state. It's kind of gross that it's not green, but we're going to get rid of basically all of it at some point anyway, so don't worry about that right now. And we won. Going to do it again. This time we're going to do it for that. And we won again. So everything looks pretty good. I'll admit I really am having trouble just letting this one thing go. So I'm going to fix it where it doesn't say like, so let me just do this. And then we'll do this. I'm going to move this down a little bit. I'm going to make this 5, let's just say. Press enter, and we'll put that in like quotations to start. How many characters is this? We can just do this. So bad. Okay, so it's 22 characters. Again, we're just kind of hard coding here, which isn't great, but totally fine for this. And now if I do it, how's it gonna look? That looks fine to me, and it's a lot better looking. I don't like the green on green, but I think I can live with it. It doesn't, in all honesty, really matter. I think what we can do just to make, I'm going really overboard here, but let's just do max y divide by 2 minus 1. And then let's do for this one, max y divided by 2 plus 1. So now if I do it, let's see how that looks. Yeah, maybe I do like divide by 3, so we're closer to the top. And let's just do divide by 2, so this is just in the middle, and I think that's gonna look a lot better. Nope, didn't mean to compile twice. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the better look. Okay. So that is the updates that we're going to make for this part of the video. In the next video, basically what we're going to do is we're going to take this kind of main menu thing and we're going to kind of like make it a lot better looking. We're also going to make it so there's kind of like a limited size for the board. I've been thinking like 40 by 40. So that's like the max size. That's the entire play space. And we're going to use that when we're going to get to like the level selection. And so what I'm picturing is like a kind of like a set of boxes where you can select your level and you can see if you've beaten it. So that means there will be like a save state. And so yeah, we're kind of coming towards the end of the actual game, but I hope one of the things that I've been thinking of is I think this whole series is trying to show that even something simple like Sokoban, even when you're making something that you know how to make and it's super simple, there's still a lot of stuff to do just to make it kind of like a worthwhile game, right? Like we haven't even gotten to adding sounds. So one thing I can see adding is when you're moving, not any sound, but when you move a block, I can picture kind of like a sound of something being pushed. And when you get over a click it, one of these, I can picture a click sound. And I can picture background music. And there's all these extra things we could add to make the game even better. Right now, we don't support arrow keys. Like right now, I'm just pressing the arrow key, but nothing actually happens. So we could add support for arrow keys. We could also add support for bindings. We also, for example, probably should allow for the space bar just to allow the player to enter anyways. We could also make it so instead of looking for the new line character like this, right? It could be any character that is not like just, it could just be any character, really. And that would also be a totally valid thing, even though we say press enter to start. So basically, there's a ton we can do to make this game better and better. So I hope this is kind of, one, maybe just informative if you care about making video games, but two, there's something here just to show that making video games is surprisingly work heavy, even if you're doing something simple. But yeah, in the next one, we'll get to menus, maybe a little save state, I don't know. But I hope everybody has a great day, and bye.